It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Now you can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. If you just reach out to me at my email, oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Now everything you hear Monday to Friday, AM, FM radio, you could find on our Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon. Everything, the ads, the commercials cut out. I know people hate the ads, they hate the commercials, so it's completely ad and commercial free. Plus, you should pop over there anyway and check out because I put up a lot of free stuff. The JFK files, that whole thing, I dumped that on there. That ridiculous Jeffrey Epstein binder with no new material, I put that up there too, as well as a little commentary. I just did an appearance on Press TV about, suddenly I'm an expert on the stock market and tariffs, okay, so they got me on there talking about that. And I put that up there too as well for free at Patreon, so you check that out. Otherwise, all of our shows, the archives are all free at Spreaker.com. I do a live show Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time with a chat room. You get an email notification when we put out new content. And I play repeats there every single night of the week. Sunday mornings, I play Mae Brussels Archives, the Mae Brussels Archives in conjunction with the Mae Brussels Project. So check out Opperman Report on Spreaker. That's our home base. Now, I'm really excited about today's guest. Okay, he's written this book. As a matter of fact, he actually worked at this Boy Scout camp, and it's called Scout Camp: Sex, Death, and Secret Societies Inside the Boy Scouts of America. Our guest, his name is Scott Renner, Renner. You can find him at scottrenner.com. On TikTok, you could find him at the James Renner. Scott Renner. Who the hell is Scott Renner? It's James Renner. Where the hell is Scott come from? JamesRenner.com. You could find him on TikTok at... Okay, so I was saying Scout Camp. That's what it was. James Renner, the James Renner at TikTok. On Twitter, nice and easy, James Renner. He's got a Substack, okay, then hopefully he'll tell us a little bit about, he's just building it up right now. And on Instagram, it's Man from Primrose Lane. Now, you want to meet our friend James Renner. He's going to be over at the Public Library in Crete, Illinois, which is right outside Chicago, on April 17th at 6 p.m. So you can get an autographed book and listen to his personal stories. Mr. James Renner, are you there?
Yes, I am. I was waiting to hear from the Scott Renner guy, though.
Say hi to Scott for me.
Hey, all right. No, yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, tell us about yourself. Who is James Renner?
Who is James Renner? That's a question I've been trying to ask now for 46 years. James Renner is a journalist and author living in Akron, Ohio, or as the kids call it here, AK Rowdy. And I'm mostly known for my true crime books. I also have a podcast called True Crime This Week that comes out every Friday morning. And I've been writing these books for a while now, and I have this new one out, just came out, called Scout Camp. And it's all about the abuse scandal within the Boy Scouts. It tells kind of the scale of what's happened, which hasn't really been sufficiently reported on yet. But it also tells the story about the summer I was at camp at a place called Seven Ranges, which is the largest Boy Scout camp in Ohio, back in 1995. And a counselor there that summer died under mysterious circumstances after a sexual assault. And it delves into that and what happened in the aftermath. And when I look back 30 years later, trying to find some answers about what happened that summer.
Yeah, that's a good question. Where do we get started on this? I guess, so you were actually a counselor down there. You said around 1995?
Yeah.
So how old were you?
I was 17 years old. It was the summer before my senior year in high school. And I, as a kid, I'd gone to Seven Ranges every summer as a Boy Scout. Started as a tenderfoot, made it all the way to life. And due to the circumstances of that summer, I never did get Eagle. I left scouting shortly thereafter. But I very much enjoyed the majority of my time at Seven Ranges. It's a huge camp in Carrollton County, which is very rural Ohio. It's out in Mennonite country where they still drive horse and buggies. And they had everything for kids, canoeing, swimming, archery, rifling. They had scoutcraft where you could learn how to build bridges and things, and handicraft where you made crafts, and astronomy. It was just, we'd go there for a week every summer, and I looked forward to it all year, and had many adventures and made many friends, and couldn't wait until I was old enough to be a counselor. And then the summer I actually became a counselor in 1995. It was just a cursed year, and it was almost biblical in nature. We had this death and this assault that happened, and a tornado, and missing kids, and it was. I probably aged 10 years in that summer and became an adult. And so it was always kind of in the back of my mind. And as I became a writer and journalist and wrote more and more books, I knew that one day I wanted to tell the story. But, I had to wait until I was mature enough to really handle it. And, luckily I've done the work, and I was in a place where I could safely write about it. And that became Scout Camp.
Yeah, I had some potential litigation against the Royal Rangers, which is like the Christian version of the Boy Scouts.
Oh,
same type of issue, And
interesting.
Just imagine, here you have an organization dedicated to wholesomeness. You know what I mean? Like the outdoors, help teaching young boys how to grow up to be men. And you at 17 years old, that's a pivotal. You're becoming a man the next year.
Yeah,
and predators are attracted to this type of situation to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot to talk about here, but just to give you some numbers, the abuse scandal that happened inside the Boy Scouts is often compared to what happened inside the Catholic Church. But if you look at the Catholic Church scandal in the United States, anyways, 11,000 victims sued the Catholic Church at the height of that scandal. Now, with the Boy Scouts so far, 82,000 victims have sued the Boy Scouts. So it's exponentially bigger in size, but there hasn't been a lot written about it. There hasn't been any movies made. And so it's something that we should be talking about a little bit more. And as far as, there's all sorts of reasons why it happened, all the way back to who founded the Boy Scouts and why is interesting. But, very simply, it happened because that's where the boys were. And it was like overeaters go to country buffet because that's where the food is. There's a buffet of food. The Boy Scouts provided a buffet of boys for these predators.
Yeah, the same as with that Pennsylvania unsealed grand jury about the Catholic Church, which was focused on the boys and the altar boys. That was their main focus over there. But who did found? I always thought it was the Mormons, the LDS, who founded the Boy Scouts, or somehow got into a position there of control, right?
Yeah, the Mormons were big into Boy Scouts. If you were a Mormon you were automatically enrolled in Boy Scouts. So they had essentially a majority in the Boy Scouts and on the board of directors at the Boy Scouts for many, many years, until just a couple years ago when the Mormons split away from the Boy Scouts because they started letting in gay scouts and transgender scouts, as they should. And the Mormons went off and did their own thing. But the Boy Scouts was actually founded by a man named Robert Baden-Powell, who was from England. And this takes you back to the turn of the century of the 1900s during the Boer Wars. There was a big war going on in South Africa between the Boers, which were the native Dutch settlers, and the Great Britain and the Crown. And so Robert Baden-Powell was an officer in the Royal Army, and he waged war down there in South Africa to help win the Boer Wars. But he was kind of a real jerk down there. He, for instance, they had this problem with a local tribe and of native Africans, and he had their leader captured. Now, in their culture, they believe the leader is their god. I believe they were called the Makalaka people, and he put together this, silly military tribunal. There wasn't really a trial. Long story short, he had this leader executed to kind of control the local native population. So a lot of people consider that deicide, the killing of a god. And he got in trouble for that. It's essentially a war crime, but was able to kind of wiggle out of trouble with that. And then they put him in charge of trying to engage with the Dutch to keep them away from the bigger military encampments down there. And he came into this town called Mafeking, and he basically set up shop there. It was a munitions depot, and there were some supplies there. So he just decided to stay and protect that city. And he enlisted the help of the boys that lived in town, and he called them scouts. And he would have them do reconnaissance, and they kept that city as safe as possible for, I think it was like over 100 days, maybe longer. But it was a while. And so he became known as the hero of Mafeking. And then you look deeper into his biography, and you see that while he was there, he was living with this young man they called, I forget what the name they had for him, the boy, I think they just called him, a guy named McLaren. And he looked, he was in his 20s, but he looked like he was a teenager. And so Robert Baden-Powell and this kid shared a little cottage, and they had a pet pig. And, there's evidence that, they often shared a bed there. And then after, while he was there, he was writing these books called about scouting, but scouting as in reconnaissance for the army. And these books were being published back in England, and they became very popular, especially with teenage boys. So after the war, when he comes back as this, quote-unquote war hero, he rewrites the book specifically for teenage boys, and that becomes the first handbook for scouting. It's called Scouting for Boys. And that's where the scouting movement started. And then it picks up in the United States using Baden-Powell's book, creating scouting here in America in 1910. And another reason why scouting took off in the United States is, this is one of those things where the more things change, the more they stay the same. At that time, there was this conservative movement in America because people were afraid that the children of that day were getting away from the church and getting all these liberal ideas in their heads, because we had just taken the kids out of the mines and out of the sweatshops and sent them to school. And so they were being indoctrinated at school, and the kids suddenly had all this free time and didn't know what to do with it. And their parents were afraid that they were going to turn to sin. So they were looking for extracurricular activities that would instill nationalism and conservative values. And they latched onto this idea of the Boy Scouts and shaped it around that.
Just think, they were probably safer in the coal mines rather than letting these guys get their hands on them.
In some ways. And then, there's this author, Tim Geel, who wrote a biography on Baden-Powell that's excellent. And he had access to materials that are no longer public that showed some of the things he found were letters that Baden-Powell, as an old man, he was writing to scouts. And in these letters, he was talking about
how to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1, go to chumbacasino.com.
chumbacasino.com. Got it.
Step 2, collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3, play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games, all for free?
Step 4, unleash your excitement.
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit chumbacasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Very adult sexual things. And so there was a creepiness level to Baden-Powell too. And I think partly because of that, it kind of seeped into the structure and the foundation of scouting itself. So maybe one of the reasons there's so many predators in scouts is because it was started by a potential predator, 100 years ago.
Oh yeah, just the type of people we want to put in charge of our sons for sleepaway camps for the summer. We're talking to James Renner, okay, and the book we're talking about is called Scout Camp: Sex, Death, and Secret Societies Inside the Boy Scouts of America. Now, you hear Mr. Renner tell this story, so you know the guy's a good storyteller. Okay, just imagine what's in the book. 4.5 stars on Amazon. Okay, I'm recommending this book. I haven't read it yet myself, but I can tell that James Renner knows how to tell a story. Okay, I hear a lot of authors, my friend. I know a good one when I hear one.
Oh, good.
I didn't even know where to start. Now, but you were a kid. Now, what was the name of that camp? It was just called something about pipe stove?
The camp is called Seven Ranges, but part of what the book dives into is another thing that's not well known about the Boy Scouts, which is that there are so many secret societies that operate inside Boy Scout summer camps, even to this day. And at Seven Ranges, there was a secret society called Pipestone. Okay. And every time I tell somebody about Pipestone that wasn't part of it or didn't go to Boy Scout camp, they're like, what in the world are you talking about? But here's the deal. So every Friday night at Seven Ranges, they take boys as young as 11 years old into the woods, and you're led to
Wait a second. Don't tell me that they bury them.
They don't bury them.
Okay.
No. But you're led to this hill, this grassy hill, and at the bottom is this raging bonfire. Okay. And the scoutmasters drop you off, and there's, picture 50 kids sitting on a hill. And the scoutmaster says, okay, everybody has to be quiet, no talking. And then they leave. All the adults leave. So it's just 50, 11, 12-year-olds sitting, watching this fire. And we're there for, I want to say, a couple hours. It's at least more than an hour. And slowly the sun sets and the fire dies down to embers. And just when you're thinking, what are we supposed to do now? All these Native American, what we called Indians, of course, back in the day, these Indians jump out from the shadows and pull us all to our feet. And they're holding road flares, these bright orange road flares that are hissing and sending smoke everywhere. And it's just mass chaos for a second until they organize everybody and they start running the boys back through the woods, down these trails. You run for a half an hour, and you eventually come to this clearing inside the woods, the circular clearing. And there's another fire in the middle of this circle. And on the trees around the circumference of the circle are the skulls of dead animals, like cows and with horns and everything. And behind the fire in the middle of the clearing is this chief. And he was this morbidly obese man. These Indians are wearing nothing but loincloths. And when I was 11 years old and took part in this for the first time, I really thought that they were Native Americans, that, they brought in from some, reservation or something. But as you grow older, you realize that, no, it's just like white guys, middle-aged white guys that paint their skin red and put on these loincloths. And so each year, and there are 5 years of Pipestone, for that first year, and every year you go through a trial. And that first year, the trial was, you had to kind of mimic some of the things the Indians did as far as like holding up their hand and moving. And then they bring you a clamshell and they tell you to drink out of the clamshell. And if you spit it out, you have to go to the back of the line and start over. But so I drank this liquid and it was the most bitter thing I've ever tasted. And later, as an adult, I learned that what they have you drink is this chemical called Bitrix, which is what they put in antifreeze so kids don't drink it. And so I swallowed that, and then I'm made to kneel down in front of the chief. So, picture me at 11 kneeling in front of this guy. I'm in between his legs, and he brings out this human skull. And you're told to look inside the eyes of the skull. And when you do, a little light comes on inside, and at the back of the skull is the password for the next year of Pipestone. And at that time, the password was secrecy. And then you're given a little Pipestone token. It's this red rock with a little stick figure man on it. And you go back and wait until everybody goes through the trial. Now, at the end of all this, the chief every year comes forward and gives a speech. And that first year's speech was all about the need for secrecy. And you're told never to talk to anybody about what happens at Pipestone, even your own parents. If they haven't gone through Pipestone, they don't need to know what goes on back there. So at a very early age, you're kind of inducted into this secret society and told to keep it a secret. And that caused so many problems at Seven Ranges specifically, because you've got adults telling you to keep a secret, and then when some of those same adults end up abusing kids, it's another secret that you have to keep. So, and Pipestone still goes on to this day. I know they've changed some things since 1995. I don't think they wear just loincloths anymore, but it's surprising to me that even outside the secrecy stuff and the weirdness of it all, that it's still going on because of the blatant cultural appropriation, the painting your skin red, wearing red face, and all that. So, and Pipestone's not the only one. There are a number of secret societies that still operate at Boy Scout camps. There's this society called Mikose out of camps in Missouri, and they call them honor societies, but they're secret societies. It's pretty crazy.
I know that there was a big push of lawsuits. You see all those commercials say if you Boy Scouts, if you were a victim, contact us. But I know they're not looking into this kind of stuff. They're just focused only on sexual abuse.
Right.
Are there anybody else talking about this?
Well, what's going on right now is they're trying to iron out the settlement money for these victims. And the Boy Scouts are always pragmatic. So what they did is you can go to the scouting website right now, and they have a page that has a calculator on it where you can input the specific type of abuse that you suffered from, and your state and the year that it happened, and it will give you a figure of what they owe you. And so that part is being reported on and followed up on. But what's not really being looked into so much right now is how, so we're giving these victims money, but nobody's talking about how to help them psychologically and physically. And you've got 82,000 people that need to be healed in some way. And we're not really talking about that. So part of the book goes into how we might help these people. They certainly need psychological help, and some of them have gotten that on their own. It should be free for these people. There's also, I do some exploring into the use of psychedelics in therapy. There is a group out of D.C. called MAPS that is using psychedelic therapy to treat veterans of war with PTSD. And I think you can use that as an example and use those psychedelic therapies to help this large group of victims pretty quickly, because what MAPS has shown is a 66% success rate in their treatment, and not just helping PTSD, but curing PTSD by using things like DMT and psilocybin, along with traditional therapy.
Yeah, I've actually had a couple of guests on the show talking microdosing mushrooms and microdosing hallucinogens, psychedelics. I've had a couple of guests on there. So what I'll do is when I play this show here, I'll repeat those shows this week in conjunction. What was the purpose? This Brix chemical that's in antifreeze. What is the purpose of giving you that?
It's just a hazing thing.
Okay.
You know, it's to make you subservient and do what they tell you to do and see that you can take instruction.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, so this happened to you the first time you were 11 years old?
Yeah. Back in 1989 was my first year at camp. I had turned 11 like 3 months before, and suddenly I'm in this bizarro world where there are Native Americans having me go through rituals. It was wild.
Yeah, I can remember I went to Catholic church as a kid, and looking back in hindsight, my friends that were older boys, and I remember saying to them once, "Oh boy, that seems interesting. And what's it like?" They said, "You don't want to get involved in this, Ed. Just stay away from this. You don't want any part of this, man." And so now looking back, you can see that. But you as an 11-year-old, how did this affect you at the time? Were you having nightmares, going home, eating disorders,
Well, that night, after I went through the ritual, I went back and I was kind of in shock. And one of the things they have you do is stand straight up with your arms folded tightly against your chest. And I was so scared that as I was standing there, I realized that I was clutching my chest so hard that I wasn't getting enough oxygen. And so I opened my arms a little bit, and all that oxygen rushed in, and I fainted. So I just went down, and I woke up. When I woke up, one of the Indians had pulled me away from the group, and I was with 3 or 4 other kids that had either gotten hurt or had also fainted. And then they were talking to me like normal people. They're like, "Are you okay? Did you get hurt?" And I just kind of stayed back with the weak ones until the ritual was over.
Just thinking, how do they have an insurance policy to cover this?
They just don't. They just don't tell their insurance company, I'm sure. There's no way to insure something like that.
Now, but then later on it gets worse. Okay, you're 11 years old. This is a huge trauma in your life. Okay, but now it gets worse because at 17 there was a death there at this camp. Is that the next stage of the story?
Yeah, sure. So in 95, when I was 17 years old, I became a staff member at the camp, and I taught first aid for first aid merit badge class in the morning. And then I worked at the trading post in the afternoon selling slushies and combos and snacks to kids. And that was a lot of fun. And, when I got there, they gave me a tent. Even though I was a staff member, I came on late. And so I got a tent in what they call CITville, which is counselor in training. And they have these tents kind of tucked behind pine trees where people can't see them. A little group of CITs. And that they had an older staff member there who was in charge of us. And his name was Mike Klingler. And he was probably 25, 26 years old or so. And when he wasn't at camp during the rest of the year, he was an elementary school teacher in a local town. And something about him just kind of put me on alert very early on. He seemed to really take an interest in me. looked at me in a different way. Was always complimenting like my ears. Like he said I had elf ears or something, and just had a weird feeling about him. And I was only in CITville, I think, for a night or two. And then I moved into the admin building at the front of campus because that's where the first aid station was. And I was able to talk myself into a bunk there. So, but that was my introduction to Klingler. And then about halfway through summer, I see a friend of mine come in for breakfast one day, and you read about this in books sometimes where somebody goes through trauma and they talk about how their skin is like ashen gray. And I always thought that was like a fictional device, but that's exactly what his skin was like. It was like his skin was like greenish gray, and he just wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't talk to anybody. I knew something was terribly wrong. One of the other older counselors, a really good guy, noticed and pulled him aside and then got the story from him. And what had happened was the night before, Klingler had sexually assaulted him. And when he told the senior counselors there, they went and escorted Klingler out of camp. And so all we knew as staff members was that Klingler was gone. So was this other kid. And the rumor was they had a fight. That's all we were told at first, was there was a fight. And the next day, they bring all the staff together for an emergency meeting first thing in the morning, and they tell us that Klingler had gone home and died by suicide, had shot himself. And then about an hour or two later, we were all pulled back together again, and they changed the story. They said, well, no. It wasn't suicide. He was shooting at cans behind his house, and it ricocheted and hit him. It was an accident. So everything about that was unclear. We didn't know what exactly had happened, and I didn't get the full story, or at least more of the story, until years later when I was working as a reporter for a place called Scene. I, out of curiosity, put in a public records request for the police reports.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
And that's where I got the full story about the sexual assault. And the coroner had ruled the death undetermined. And so I called up the coroner and I said, tell me about what happened to Klingler. And he said, well, we don't know if it's a murder or a suicide, but it's one of those two. We just can't determine for sure if he killed himself or somebody else fired that shot. So that is kind of the big question behind this book that's set up at the beginning is what happened to Klingler? Was it murder? Was it suicide? And why was Klingler the way he was? And, it reveals a pattern of abuse at Seven Ranges that goes back for a while. And ultimately, the man who's most responsible, I believe, is a guy named Jim Mills, who was actually the adult at Pipestone who was in charge of youth protection. His job was to protect the youth from predators, but he was a predator himself. And he actually dies in a very similar manner in 2017. Again, died by gunshot, and really it could be murder or suicide.
Well, clarify for me though. Klingler was the school teacher, or he was
yeah.
Well, he was a school teacher, but he was abusing others. But you think he was abused too? I'm not clear.
Yes, yeah, he was abusing others. He was very close with this other leader, Mills, who was in charge of youth protection, and in fact, they also abused a couple of the same boys. They were abusing the same victims, and Mills, my introduction to Mills was at the end of that summer after Klingler's death, when I was invited to be a part of Pipestone for the first time. So I had completed all 5 years, and once you can do that, you can be a part of it. So for the first time, I went behind the scenes, and that's when I was shown that they have this secret shower house in the woods where people that organize Pipestone go on Friday nights and they get ready. And these are grown men, and the first thing they do is get naked, and they take a shower, and then they air dry. So they're standing around naked, and they have a spaghetti feast. So all these like middle-aged grown men naked eating spaghetti with each other. And then they paint each other's skin red, and nobody can paint their own back, right? So everybody has to help each other out. And some of these grown men are looking to the teenage boys that are also there, and they're like, "Hey, help me out here." Very, very weird. And the shower house, at least at that time, there was no separation between adult and boys, so everybody was showering together too.
But the boys were 17.
Well, some of the boys were as young as 15.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because you get your first year Pipestone at 11. You can complete it by 15. And sorry, I'm getting over a little virus here. But so there are kids as young as 15 that were partaking in the naked spaghetti feasts before Pipestone and helping each other paint bodies. But Mills, so the day after Pipestone, everybody else is leaving, and Mills invites me and 3 other boys to come to this sweat lodge that he's built on the property. And he's like, "But don't tell anybody else because there's only room for us." And so I find myself, alone with Mills and these other boys, and he leads us into the sweat lodge, and we're told to undress, so we're all naked. And in a sweat lodge, you've got the fire going, or coals, and you pour water to get the steam and everything. Sure. So we all get soot on us. So at the end, we're all dirty. And he has a gravity shower set up at the back of his RV, and he holds the shower, and we shower in front of him, one by one. And he's naked the whole time, and he comments on our bodies as we're going through, and it's very obvious. Even to me at the time, I'm like, something's really wrong here. I'm pretty sure he was videotaping the whole thing. He had it set up for video. It was really weird, and that was Mills. And it was probably about 10 years after that he got caught with a bunch of boys at his house and was charged. And the day of his sentencing, he was found dead in his backyard, and they found him naked, and he had been shot. So he had left a suicide note, but the suicide note was typed. And I don't know who types out a suicide note. I kind of suspect he was actually murdered, but in order to, for his co-conspirators not to be revealed.
He had already been convicted, though.
Yes.
Was there still a potential to make a plea deal and inform on others to get a better deal? Or did you know?
Well, there was still yes, there's still a possibility that he could roll on other people if he wanted to and maybe cut a deal.
Just amazing, the elaborate planning with the soot and the shower, the elaborate planning going. This is all they have going on in their mind all the time.
Absolutely, yep.
But now you're 17 years old. What was your social life like? When you have girlfriends, were you naive, just totally naive to a.
Yeah, I was probably naive a little bit. I had girlfriends, but nothing too serious until after that summer. The Boy Scouts are, at least our troop, I think it's a place for boys that aren't athletic, that aren't involved in a lot of serious sports, to find their own people. So the other boys in my troop, we were a bunch of nerds. We'd sit around and play Magic: The Gathering and listen to the Cranberries and talk about Stephen King and so that's our group. So it's the type of they kind of make good victims. They're kind of outsiders.
Yeah, plus the hierarchy, you want to get promoted, you want to get a badge, you want to please the elders, you want to do all that kind of stuff.
Of course, yeah.
Jim Mills, okay, he gets convicted, but not even because of what he's doing over here at this camp. He's got kids because he's not got enough going on at the camp. He has to have kids at his house too.
Right.
So he gets busted.
Camp.
Yeah,
the camp. After that summer of '95. Is a little after that where the camp became aware of his proclivities. And I wouldn't call it a cover-up so much as just something that was never reported to the proper authorities, because he was, after that summer, not allowed to come back to camp or Pipestone because they knew what he was up to. But nobody reported it to police.
Has anybody within this Boy Scouts, have they been brought to justice besides Mills?
No. Another reason for this is because of the location of Seven Ranges. Okay. Like I said, it's out in rural Ohio. It's so far away from any major city and any major police department to investigate that this stuff can go under the radar and just not get reported.
Who owned the lands where this camping was going on? Was it public lands, or was it donated lands, or private property that was allowed to be used, or was it owned by the Scouts?
It was owned by Buckeye Council, which is one of the councils of Boy Scouts here in Ohio. So it was owned by the local Boy Scouts. Okay. And this is another reason why it took so long to get justice for these victims, because of the way that the Boy Scouts operate. Because they operate kind of like a franchise system, kind of like McDonald's, where, there's Boy Scout headquarters, which is in Irving, Texas. And they give, their blessing to these local scout troops that are sponsored by churches, mostly churches. So you'll have your meetings at a church or outside of a church. And so when something happens where a boy is victimized, where a boy is abused, the headquarters of the Boy Scouts can say, look, it's not us, it's that local troop, it's that local council. They weren't doing their due diligence. So it deflects some responsibility from, the Boy Scout, the official Boy Scout organization. And because it's more like the franchise went wrong. That little place went wrong, but it's not us.
Yeah, there's subcontractors, and then they have dummy corporations in between that has no assets. So nobody wants to sue them. You're not going to find a lawyer to sue one of these asset joints. Disney does the same thing, by the way, too, with their vendors. They use these outside vendors and they subcontractors to avoid overall.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1, go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2, collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa Welcome Bonus.
Step 3, play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games, all for free?
Step 4, unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Liabilities.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous
that they get away with it, that we let them get away with it. Everyone says it's the most upsetting topic, that everybody's most upset about the kids getting molested. It's the most outrageous topic, and it's the one thing that we do the littlest about to prevent or prosecute.
Yeah.
It's all talk.
I think part of it, too, is we want to look at the Boy Scouts as this ideal, perfect organization. We want them to have that branding and feel. They were the subject of Norman Rockwell paintings. Yeah. They're a big part of the background of this country. And so when you talk out against them, it's like you're talking out against the American dream in some way. And people don't like that. And
it's apple pie,
yeah.
And Eagle Scouts, man, you make Eagle Scouts, those guys go on to be astronauts and senators, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, presidents. It's one of the things I say in the book is we're always looking for the Illuminati. We're looking for the secret organization that indoctrinates our kids and victimizes them. And I'm like, look, we're looking for the Boy Scouts. It's right here.
And it starts off with boys. Let's start the little boys, capture their minds when they're little. Oh my goodness! Now, what about? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All that said, some of my best memories are from the Boy Scouts, and it did teach me to be very self-reliant, and that's helped me a great deal in life. So I took some good things out of it, and I don't necessarily think that scouting in general is a bad thing. One thing that they've changed recently that I think is going to help tremendously and has made abuse much less likely to happen is they've allowed girls and women to join. So you've got girls in scouting now. In fact, it's not even called the Boy Scouts. It's called Scouting America now, which let's talk about the branding of that. If you try to make an abbreviation for their organization now, it's SA. And, just like nobody thought of that.
Right. No, it's right in your face, man. I think a lot of that's intentional,
So, yeah. And so now there's women leaders, and the women leaders are, keeping the men in check because, 99% of these crimes are committed by men. So the more women you have in there, the less likely it is that these things are going to happen.
Yeah, but let's see how long that lasts. We just had Trump reverse some executive orders. One is mandatory a supply of baby formula. Another one is segregation. They're allowed to not have segregation. Government contractors can segregate their restaurants in 2025. This is really going on.
That's a good point. I'm sure as soon as somebody points out to him that women are in Boy Scouts now, he'll try to do something about that.
What about James Renner? Okay. Dude, man. I talked to a lot of people that had trauma in their life, and you seem to be doing really good. You seem to really have a grip on this. How did you get through this? Did you go to therapy? How did you get through this?
Yeah. It's been a long journey. In fact, therapy helped. I don't, along with every other journalist that I know of is, I'm on anti-anxiety medication. That helps a little bit. But the act of writing this book and the research that went into it probably helped more than anything else. And I'm in a really good place now. And it has a lot to do with this book. One of the things I did, I had talked about the psychedelic therapy, and in order to properly describe it as a proper journalist, I had to partake. And so back in 2023, I went to D.C. and in the presence of a therapist, I took psilocybin and tripped and had this psychedelic experience. And that there were some immediate effects and some long-term effects. And the immediate effects were, as a victim, you get caught in these paranoid thoughts and these cycles of thoughts, and that just this running the despair, these thoughts that are always going on in your mind. And what that does, what the psychedelics did was kind of reboot my brain, and those patterns of thought went away immediately. And so that was the initial benefit. And then long term, it just it allowed me to see myself more objectively and find forgiveness and get rid of the shame that comes with that, and all the really good things that you can do for your psyche. I kind of felt those effects growing over the course of like 6 months, and along with other therapy, I'm in a really good place now, and it's helpful to the more I talk about these things, the less power they have over me.
No, you sound. Trust me, I cover this topic a lot. Okay, I've talked to a lot of people that I worry about. But they say ketamine too is another one. Ketamine treatment that blocks out this, but
Yeah.
How do you find a therapist? I can't find one down here in Florida that would do that for me.
At this moment, I bet you could find them. And a good place to start is MAPS, MAPS, and they have a lot of literature on their website that will steer you in the right directions. But there are places like Ann Arbor, Denver, San Francisco, Oakland, and D.C. where psychedelics are no longer illegal. And there you can find therapists that will be open to the idea of psychedelics or ketamine. And my recommendation would be absolutely go for it if you think that it might help you, but not by yourself. Right. You need to do it the only way it'll really, really help is to do it in a therapeutic session. You need somebody there talking to you. You need somebody sober to be watching out for you, somebody that has experience with it. But, I think we're on the very beginning of a major new era of therapy with the legalization of these psychedelics.
Yeah, I'm 63 years old. I grew up in New York City with the Yippies on the Lower East Side.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I trust me, man. I've sampled a great deal of LSD and psilocybin and all those subjects, all those substances. With supervision.
We'll have to hang out someday.
Well, you know what? I haven't in so long. I'd kind of be worried about trying it. I'm so wired so tight these days.
It's not something you want to do all the time.
Yeah.
I haven't done it again since then, and I could see maybe once a year having a little reset would be okay, but this is not a drug that you're going to want to do every night.
Oh, no. Well, and we can have a little conversation about that off the air too one day. I've told the story at my solo shows because I used to sell the stuff too, and I would be counting it by one, like on a manila folder with my finger.
Oh,
and then
great.
I'm sweating, so I'm rubbing my forehead.
Oh, no.
I know, right? I was tripping for days, man.
That's funny.
Oh, yeah, it's funny now. I survived. Okay. Now, because we're running out of time, okay? But I want to talk about your other book, too. But is there anything else about this story here with the Scouts you want to tell us that I haven't asked you? Let me pull up the title again. Is Scout Camp, Sex, Death, and Secret Societies Inside the Boy Scouts of America. Anything I didn't cover in it?
I think I would just want to say that, this may sound like a really deep, dark book, but I've told it in a way that I think is very accessible and not to say fun, but it should read pretty easily. And I've read reviews on Goodreads, and this book has gotten better reviews than anything I've written. And people, say things like, "Wow, this reads like more like a mystery or a thriller," and kept my attention. But also that there's a lot of humor in it, because I am telling a story about a bunch of teenage boys living in the wilderness for a summer. There's going to be some hilarity involved in that, and so it's an important story, a dark story, but also there's some lightness and humor and grace in it too.
Oh yeah, there's nothing like growing up like a little kid out there with a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Get into mischief every single day.
Oh yeah.
But and you said they got the greatest reviews. Okay, 4.4. But just the other book you told me about is 4.3. It's not just
really?
as good. Yeah.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
True Crime Addict, How I Lost Myself in the Mysterious Disappearance of Maura Murray. So just give us a short description. Not too short. We had about 5-6 minutes. But tell us about that book. And then I'm going to beg you to come back, man. This is great stuff. I love you.
Thanks. True Crime Addict is probably the book I'm most known for at this point. It is on the unsolved disappearance of Maura Murray. And if you're not familiar with the case, Maura Murray was a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst in 2004, February 2004. And one Monday morning, she emails her professors and says, "There's been a death in my family. Hold my work. I'll be in at the end of the week. I got to take care of this." And that was a lie. There's no death in her family. She goes to the bank and empties out her bank account, which is only a little over $200 or so. And then she goes to the liquor store and buys a bunch of booze, like more booze than like any one person needs. Gets in her car, drives north into the White Mountains of New Hampshire, which is like a 4.5-hour drive or so. Around 7:30 that night, and this is February, so it's dark by then, she crashes into a snowbank in front of like 4 houses on this country road. Some of the people that live there hear the crash. They call the police. And so we know when the accident occurs and when the police arrive, about 5 to 7 minutes later. So there's this window of 5 to 7 minutes after the crash, but before the police arrive, where she disappears, never to be seen again. So it's a twisty mystery. And to me, I was interested in it because it's kind of like two mysteries wrapped up in one. But what happened to Maura Murray, but also what was she doing in the White Mountains to begin with? And so I figured if I could answer one of those questions, I could get closer to the truth. And it's one of those cases where you've got this person, Maura, who, by all accounts that we've had so far, was this perfect all-American girl. But kind of like Twin Peaks, when you start peeling back the layers, there's a lot of darkness there. And a lot of people with the means, motive, and opportunity to want to do harm to her. So, it's a bizarre true crime case that's still unsolved.
Oh, yeah, we definitely have to have you come back on that. True Crime Addict, How I Lost Myself and the Mysterious Disappearance of Maura Murray by James Renner. And 1,400 ratings. So, when people take the effort to leave you a rating, they like the book.
That's one of those books, like True Crime Addict. If you look on Goodreads, you'll see that it's almost divided between 4 or 5 stars and 1 star, because people either love it or hate it. And it's so, my true crime is always wrapped up in memoir a little bit. Yeah. So I do take it a little personally because, some people just really, really hate some of the memoir stuff in there, and it's like, well, what you're saying is you you really don't like me, which is fine. But so it's one of those books that there's no middle ground. You either like it or you hate it. Yeah, true crime is a tough audience, man. Everyone's got their theory, and if you disagree slightly, then you're the enemy. Oh, for sure. It's definitely true with this case, for sure. Real quick question though, with the Scout Camp, the book just came out February, right? Just came out. Yep. And it's just now available as an audiobook, too. So it's up on Audible as of last week. Have people been reaching out to you, victims from this Scout Camp that knew you back in those days? Have people been reaching out to you yet? Not so many that knew me, but I am starting to, yes, people are reaching out either through email or Facebook with similar experiences. Yeah. Or people that have gone through Pipestone and they're like, hey, Or I hear, a lot of my readers are women, so I hear from women that are like, my husband always told me about this Pipestone thing, and it sounded weird, and, after reading your book, I can't believe what you guys went through. This is nuts. Right. So I'm hearing from a lot of them. Okay, we've been talking to James Renner, jamesrenner.com. You can find him on TikTok at The James Renner. On Twitter at James Renner. He's got a Substack. Keep an eye out for that. On Instagram, it's Man from Primrose Lane. And you want to meet him in person, shake his hand for all this great work he's doing. Crete, Illinois, April 17th, 6 p.m. at the library right outside of Chicago. But just go to jamesrenner.com. I'm sure it has the address and all that kind of stuff there. Yeah. Hey, Mr. Renner, man, thank you so much. Hey, thanks so much. Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. I'll be getting in contact about your next story. And you ever write a book, a cookbook? Now, whatever you write, just give me a call. I'll put you right on the air, man. Okay? All right. Deal. Thank you, sir. Good night. Thank you.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to chumbacasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa Welcome Bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No